Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Max Spoilers from MinnMax, place about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. On this glorious of days, we're joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Beetlejuice.
We're joined by Ross Fund.
Beetlejuice.
And I would introduce Brian Vore, but I can't because he's going to say something naughty. All right, this is obnoxious. Brian Vore is here already.
Beetlejuice.
All right, welcome, everybody. This is Max Spoilers on Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. We're going to be spoiling, discussing...
Title. There's extra, right? 2024 AD.
That's
like
true.
Part of the title.
And Tim Burton apparently that's what he originally wanted to call it, was this Beetlejuice 2024 AD. And so I feel like that's his concession, is like, well, in the title card it's there, and in the poster it's there, and it is a fun name either way. Also, I just learned that I think I was listening to this interview about Forrest Gump, and when they were talking about making the sequel to Forrest Gump, I think the plan was they were going to call that Forrest Gump. So
are you serious?
Yeah, so I think Beetlejuice
really?
is kind of
joking around.
No, I think that was sincerely like the writer in this interview on the podcast. Anyways, we're spoiling Beetlejuice in this discussion. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. You can help support content like this. We're doing a lot over this couple week span. So if you want to help support everything we're doing here at MinnMax, if you say at any point during this discussion, yeah, you know what? I'm glad these folks are talking about Beetlejuice. I'm glad to listen to somebody talk about that. You can support independent content directly by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you jump in and support us on Patreon before the end of Friday, September 13th here, we will DM you on Patreon with a code for the racing game Phantom Spark, which is brand new. You can get a random Steam game if you want to roll those dice, or I will DM you 2 random Xbox games. So that's the offer, everybody. If you jump in at even the $2 tier and support us on Patreon before Friday, but if you jump in at the $5 tier, you also get the podcast version of this, our bonus podcast called Bonus Pod every single week. This last week's episode was excellent, so there's a ton of benefits there, so thanks for supporting us. Enough with the plugs, Kyle. Let's get to this spooky-ass movie.
Let's do it.
Okay, you saw it Sunday. Ross and Brian and I, we see it Friday? Is that what that was?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. We barely talked about it leaving the theater for the sake of everybody's watching and listening enjoyment. But Kyle, I guess the big outlier here, the big freak in the room. What'd you think about Beetlejuice?
I like Beetlejuice. It's a fun movie that I really enjoyed. I'd have to think about. I was thinking of like Lego sequels, right? That term that's kind of amorphous and like. I was like, is this one of my favorite ones of those? And I think it's up there.
Yeah.
Like, I think Blade Runner is still my favorite.
Yep. But
I was really happy with this movie and had a good time, especially like the last act, not to jump ahead too much, but that whole final sequence, I was like, this is great. I'm just having such a blast right now.
It's so fun. And like, I was a little bit scared. I mean, Beetlejuice is one of the most important movies of my youth. Like, I know everyone's got their movies they watched over and over again. And like in my household, for whatever reason, Beetlejuice was like God tier for us. Like everyone could agree that this movie rules. We'll watch it a ton. My mom would always quote that line in Beetlejuice where she goes, "If you're not let me out of this house, I'm going to go insane. I'm going to take you with me." And like just like all these like quotes are just always from Beetlejuice in the house. And so like just watching it, we should be numb to Lego sequels at this point, but it's like, it's so wild. If you would have told me as a kid that we're getting a sequel to Beetlejuice in the year 2024, and also they made a sequel to Coming to America, which also was like that God tier movie in the house as a kid, like, and that movie, the sequel was not great. But the point is, I was worried about this. Like, I'm in that camp of why not give it a whirl? And this isn't like a slam dunk home run movie, but I was just watching it. It's like, who can be mad at this? This is fun. And I was overthinking it so many times too, just watching. And I'm like, I can objectively see that this part sucks, that I should be angry at this, but it's Beetlejuice. It's just fun, silly stuff. And I'm so on board for it.
Beetlejuice is your Star Wars, Ben.
Ooh. Ross, hand to God, I've seen the original Beetlejuice more than I've seen the original trilogy in Star Wars. Absolutely.
Did you watch the cartoon and stuff too? Was that like a staple for you?
A little bit, not a huge staple. Yeah, I know people are really devoted to that thing in a fun way, and even being like, "Oh, Astrid is kind of like Lydia in the cartoon here with how buddy she is with Beetlejuice," and it's like there's maybe some of that juice flowing in here. But
I wonder if Tim Burton has ever watched a single second of the animated show.
Yeah. Well,
I wonder if he maybe had to approve like something like way back in the 80s, but yeah, the character designs or something, maybe he would
Yeah.
He would have to, or the voice cast or something.
To be honest, that was my main exposure to Beetlejuice. Like, I didn't see it until I was, older, but I was like, that cartoon was always on. I was like, I don't really get what's going on here. This is a kooky show, but I like it.
I like the
Ryan, I'm in the
music.
same boat. I really like a lot of Burton movies, but Beetlejuice was not one that I watched until I was a bit older.
Huh.
And it's kind of become like a Halloween staple now. And it's a movie I like more every time I watch it. Like, we watched it again before seeing the sequel.
Yeah.
And I found myself laughing maybe more than I ever have. Just with that repeated viewing.
Well, Brian's a freaking hero. He stayed up late the night before on Thursday to watch the original Beetlejuice to go in fresh. Like, what was that like to go right from that original to this one, Brian?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I love doing that, and I had seen it like a few years ago was the last time maybe I watched it. God, it's just such a fresh movie for the time, and like, I don't know where they came up with the art design for everything. Like,
Right.
it's just absolutely mind-blowing still watching today. And just so much practical effects. The only thing that's obviously not going to look great is when they like go to the sand dune world and like it's really bad green screen, but I loved the claymation, seeing that action again.
Yeah.
And just I think maybe obviously Beetlejuice 1 is the classic here, but what I love about that is that it feels like a very contained story. It's very much like, oh, these two people die in the beginning. They have this problem of being stuck in the house, and it's like it doesn't have to like, where the second one, it kind of has to like go beyond that and become kind of more like, here's the whole undead world and all the rules and like all these other players. But I just like the simplicity of the first one.
Yeah, it's really, the first one's a sweet movie, and I know it's everyone's take watching it again, but it's like, oh, it's amazing how little Beetlejuice is in that first movie. And he's so fun every time he pops up, but like, the Maitlands are the star. And so I was kind of worried about it, especially like seeing the musical. Has anyone else seen the Beetlejuice musical?
No, but I heard it was great.
Okay. From Congress? No, it is good. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but at the same time, it's like they lean really heavily into Beetlejuice. Like, Beetlejuice is everywhere. I'm trying to remember. I think he might even be connected to like the death of the Maitlands, like in the musical. They really try and like scatter him or just like shoehorn him down your throat.
It's an alternate like version of the movie, right?
Right.
Because we were trying to figure that out as a family, the timeline of like, what is Beetlejuice the sequel? Is that like take place after the musical? And I was like reading the Wikipedia entry for the musical and stuff. So, okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that's interesting in comparison to the musical, but like for the movie itself, I was worried that they were going to take some of those lessons for the sequel movie. Then it's gonna be like, oh my God, it's gonna be so much Beetlejuice. We're gonna be sick with them. But like, I love how little Beetlejuice is in the sequel movie here. But real quick, before I lose the train of thought on the musical thing, like in the musical, Lydia wants to go to the land of the dead to find her mom. That's like a big component. And so like that is interesting how kind of that is pulled forward here with Astrid wanting to find her dad. So it's like, Beetlejuice, the musical did really well. And so I wonder if the writers are like, well, we should pull something from that, or if it's just obviously the next path you can go when you're trying to mess with the story of Beetlejuice. It's like, wouldn't it be compelling to have a human journey to the land of the dead in a big way?
Doesn't Lydia also say in Beetlejuice that her biological mother is alive?
Yes. Okay. That's huge.
So,
for Beetlejuice lore, which you really have to take very seriously.
We're all very concerned about, for sure. Yeah.
Ross, do I remember correctly? Did you say you liked the sequel more than the original Beetlejuice?
Maybe that's an insane take. I'm not a big original Beetlejuice guy. Like, I saw it when I was a kid, and it was like too scary for me at the time, so I didn't go back to it for a long time. And then, maybe that magic wasn't there for me. I didn't really watch the cartoon either because Beetlejuice like totally stressed me out as like one of those ungovernable characters who just does whatever they want.
Yeah, but I bet you loved
really
like Taz, the Tasmanian Tiger. He must have been devil. He must have been all on board that.
Yeah, but I did play the NES game a little bit back in the day.
Okay.
Which is like it was developed by Rare and is a pretty terrible like puzzle platform game.
I'm listening.
Published by LJN, but it's got a great soundtrack by David Wise, and not worth revisiting probably overall. But
I was just writing it down for New Show Plus. You're saying I shouldn't write it down for New Show Plus?
Well, but if you want if you want like a 5-minute version of New Show Plus before you decide to throw your controller and unplug the NES, then maybe.
Great.
I do want to go listen to the soundtrack. A David Wise NES Beetlejuice soundtrack sounds pretty stellar.
It's great. It's not quite as unhinged as this Danny Elfman score for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, but it is it's pretty out there for an NES game, and it's pretty awesome. But so as a person who last saw Beetlejuice probably 3-4 years ago and enjoyed it fine, this movie, the first half hour, I was like, ooh, do I not like this? This is real slow.
Yeah.
And then the last hour of it, it just kicks into gear, and it's a great time all the way through, and it ends really strong. So I was like, maybe I do like this better than the original.
That's interesting. Yeah. Abrupt but strong. But that was a take I had too. It's like, oh, this is kind of a slow burn, but I'm on board for it. Like, and I think the problem with the Lego sequels, Kyle, when you're talking about the greatest of all time, you always forget Dragon Ball Super, which I do think those movies count as Lego sequels, and I think they're the greatest.
Honestly, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But with the Lego sequels, I feel like I'm always just concerned about, and this is I call it the Dumb and Dumber 2 effect of like just all I can think about is like the lack of energy on the screen. And even with this, like I'm just worried about like every scene with Winona Ryder. I'm like, come on, just don't fall flat. Come on, everybody, just have some spark of youth somewhere. And it's like, I feel like by and large, this movie passed the test. Like even from the, trailers, I was worried about like, okay, Michael Keaton's basically there again. He's really low for all of his lines, in the sequel, but I guess that's fine. But like he has enough zaniness to him that like, all right, I'm not going to be bugged by everybody just being flat, old, boring, unfunny people, which is the problem with every other Lego sequel out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Catherine
it's good
O'Hara
to
was
establish like
yes,
it's the have the real world established. How mundane things are. Since Beetlejuice and the Maitlands have apparently moved on, and all they had to do was say one line. It's like, oh yeah, we found a loophole, and yeah, they're not in this, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that Lydia ends up being like a spooky ghost show host.
Right.
That's a nice one. You could, I think, in another era, if they would have done this in maybe the early 2000s, maybe it would be she'd be like a ghost author, or I don't know. But yeah, I like that she has like a corny show.
Yeah, and the story of the name of the show is Ghost House, and that was the name that the studio was really trying to press for the first movie to be called. So call it Ghost House. Like, no, it's the worst title ever. So it's like a fun production in-joke then that her show in Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is just called Ghost House.
Yeah, I that also flickered in my mind because I read the trivia for Beetlejuice 1 after I watched the movie.
Yeah.
But it was like, I guess it was House Ghosts.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, okay, like House Guests. Okay.
And then Tim Burton was like, why don't we that's so stupid. Why don't we call it something even dumber, like Scared Sheetless? And they're like, that's not actually a bad idea. He's like, no.
Please don't. Yeah,
Stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the Winona Ryder thing, it's like, even from trailers, I was worried about it. Like, she just doesn't feel like Lydia anymore. She's not edgy, like she's not defying the system. But then I love that was kind of a part of the plot here. There's a scene with her and Catherine O'Hara.
Like she has changed in an appropriate way since the first movie, I think.
Yeah, it's a nice generational touch, right? Because now her daughter has more of the attitude that she had maybe back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that, by the way, when she sees like her first ghost when she's popping the pills in the bathroom, I thought like, oh, that ghost is gonna be like a recurring character throughout the whole thing. And it was like, no, it's just that one and done. Like you don't even get to see her in the afterlife or anything. It was such an odd thing, but I guess you got to explain or let people know
you have to know as the viewer that she does see ghosts, right, even if no one else believes her. Which is funny. My family, we just finished watching Ghosts, the BBC show. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but it's about a woman who sees ghosts, and the whole show is like, her husband can't see the ghosts, but she can. So it's her like interacting. It's a comedy. It's actually very funny. So it was funny to watch that and then watch Beetlejuice back to back.
It's so similar. Yeah.
That sounds very appealing. I think the reason I watched Beetlejuice a few years ago is because my wife and I were on a kick of kooky ghost movies.
Oh,
in which someone dies in like a not too scary way. It's pretty much always a car crash. And then they are trying to get through some hijinks, but maybe only one person can see them. they look insane because they're talking to nothing. You know, like that
Ghost
was
is a
our
classic
theme
example,
for a
right?
while. It's so much fun every time.
It is.
Yeah, you should watch Ghosts on BBC. There's an American adaptation too that's pretty good as well.
I just know it is. They run commercials for it constantly during Survivor for the CBS version of Ghosts, and we all just look at each other and say, "Who's watching Ghosts?" And the answer is it's Kyle.
I think that show's fantastic.
Okay, all right, what are you gonna do? No, I was so like my mother-in-law is staying with us, and I was going to see this movie, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't like that first movie. It was too silly." And I got back and was talking about it, like, I really like Beetlejuice, and she's like, "Is it just like one of those movies where like dead people's heads spin around?" And I was like, this is the most dead people's heads spin around movie ever made. And that is what I love about it. Like, I don't like horror movies, but I like death. And so I just loved seeing goofy, silly dead people. Like, I was a sucker for kind of the bureaucracy in the first Beetlejuice, like that character of Juno in the afterlife, the smoking old lady. Like, I think she's a cooler character than Beetlejuice. Like, she is the star of that movie in my mind. And so like in this movie, just having like the phone operator, like like when she first popped up, it was like perfect. Or just like, you know, the magician in the cube of water with his hands sticking out, like seeing just how everybody died in this afterlife. Like, this is what I want. Just spooky, silly death comedies. This is great.
Yeah, Danny DeVito, you must have loved him, right?
Danny DeVito, yeah, surprising early death. They really hit him in the trailer, and then they know to, I guess, get him out of the scene early. But easy shoot for him.
The trailers? Did I miss that? I thought that was like a surprise cameo.
Oh, really? I could have sworn he was in there somewhere. I wasn't surprised when I saw him. Yeah,
I only watched like one of the trailers, so maybe I missed it. But,
yeah. I try to stay away from the trailers for this one just because. I don't want to spoil any kooky ghost stuff.
I get it. It's that's the wild thing is, I mean, there's so many different threads to this movie, right? And there's just so much silly ghost stuff. But I was just realizing, like, in the first movie, the ghosts are kind of the straight man in the situation, right? And so it's funny thinking about this movie where it's like, there isn't really a straight man. I guess Astrid, the Jenny Ortega character, kind of, but like it's just wall-to-wall wacky characters colliding with each other. And Kyle, you mentioned it before, but yeah, like Catherine O'Hara, it's like, I should have guessed that she would just be the, you know, cornerstone of this entire movie and she could carry it. And it's funny seeing how well this movie is doing in theaters, like second biggest box office opening in September ever, which is awesome. But but thinking about it, it's like Jenny Ortega and the success of Wednesday, and then maybe Catherine O'Hara, the success of like Schitt's Creek. Like somehow that Netflix bump has resulted in Beetlejuice becoming a blockbuster, which is such a fun idea.
Yeah, and you got Winona Ryder for Stranger Things as well.
Of course,
so it's like trifecta.
Yeah,
there we go. And Jenna Ortega with Wednesday, I think, is really huge with the younger audience as well.
Yeah,
and you know, it's the same writers or the you know, the two, Miller and Go, they're the guys that wrote this movie, and they've written a ton of Hollywood stuff for the last 30 years, and they wrote Wednesday as well.
Okay.
And I like Jenna Ortega is just like perfect for kooky horror stuff. Like I don't know why the fit is so good, but she's like iconic in Wednesday and just like perfect for this.
Yeah. The Catherine O'Hara thing, just to focus on that a little bit, like, you know,
her
when
facial expressions are like on point every time. Like
So
anytime
good.
somebody says something and she's doing like or whatever, perfect.
Or just that little moment where she's in the afterlife with Beetlejuice and just like looks at him and goes like, ugh. It was like, perfect. It's such a small moment, but it's so important to have that back here. And then like
one of my biggest laughs were when she finds her husband in the afterlife and his head is completely bitten off by a shark, and she goes like, look what happened to me. And
she's got the little snake bites.
like red dots on her neck. It's so funny.
Yeah, and that's like a perfect way for her to die. I love that idea. It's like, you know what? Beetlejuice sequel, take some swings, go ahead, kill off that character. Why not? And so for the asps to bite her, and then I love when she like lands in the afterlife and she's like, what the hell? Like, I feel like we're like dancing on language a lot more in this movie than I was expecting, but apparently it's
just
important.
fully bleep one F-bomb.
Right.
Which is I love it. It was just so it's so transparent why they did that, and it just made it funnier.
Yeah, because Beetlejuice says it. It's like, well, you know, he breaks a fourth wall. It's totally fine.
He can say it once, and then his second time they have to bleep, which is very funny to me.
Right.
Another gag I liked related to the guy's head getting bitten off was that he sits down next to the surfer who's bitten in half. And the surfer's like, Relate.
Yeah,
I relate, man.
Yeah, I was like, hey, man. Yeah, because I saw that guy in the
His
background.
shark fin gravestone, also a beautiful touch.
So stupid. She can remember
Could have used a few of those
in.
in the Jaws movies.
Yeah, obviously a lot of people are up in arms might be a stretch, but being like, wait, really? Like, because that actor for the father turns out a pedophile. And so the idea that like, okay, even having him in the sequel, even as a half of a corpse is a weird move, but especially where it's like that claymation sequence at the beginning with the plane going down is cool. I like that they have that claymation sequence in there, stop motion sequence, but at the same time, it's like, did they have to pay him for like his likeness rights then to do that? I would think so.
Yeah, and his tombstone is like an actual photograph.
Right.
Of his face too,
Yeah.
So that was a little strange to see.
Yeah.
But at least he's dead in this.
Hey, you know what? At least he's dead somewhere. Yeah. But, thinking about, Beetlejuice as a character, breaking the fourth wall, all this stuff. I don't know if you all had this thought, but it's just weird watching this movie and thinking about like this summer, we've had such a weird overlap for movies in some way where it's like in some ways Beetlejuice feels like it's got elements of Deadpool, or like Deadpool has elements of Beetlejuice, I guess is the better way to frame it, just frantic energy breaking the fourth wall. But then also there are parts where it's like, this kind of feels like Inside Out too. Like the whole Soul Train thing, like this just feels like a Inside Out bit of like, what if a Soul Train was a soul train, everybody? It's like, okay.
That felt like a joke that was left over from a 1993 sequel to Beetlejuice.
Yep, the one Beetlejuice goes to Hawaii.
It's like, we're back on the Soul Train joke, huh, guys? It like pops up like 3-4 times.
Then again, it's like, I like watching people dance on a big screen. I guess I'm all right with that whole thing. But Kyle, what do you think about Beetlejuice himself in this movie?
I think Keaton was good. The thing to me that I was thinking about over the course of the movie, and then later after I left, was like, is Beetlejuice like one of the most powerful characters in fiction? Because he can just like change reality to whatever he wants at any
He
time.
has the Infinity Gauntlet, basically.
Yeah, like he's
I saw you tweet about this, Kyle, and I love that he is an omnipotent character and his only weakness is terms and conditions. Like he has to abide by the letter of the contracts he signed and stuff. And it's like a very like folk tale type of character, right? He's like a genie, basically, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I thought Keaton was great, and they didn't get too excessive with him. I'm kind of torn on the wife sequence. That's the one a lot of people are like sort of honing in on and is being like, did we need that? And like, I love the whole sequence of her putting herself together. I've been listening to that Bee Gees song a lot now. I wasn't familiar with that song before the movie. And so like now I'm like really into that song. Same for MacArthur Park. Like that song has always just been fascinating to me. And when it started to become like clear that that's what we were going to be listening to, I was like, this is amazing. This is perfect in a weird way. Like her, I think she could be removed from the movie, like in some way. Sure. But at the same time, like I liked all her sequences, but the thing that I'm kind of torn about is like, I don't know if I ever really want any Beetlejuice history. I liked that sequence of him talking about I think he was alive at that time, right? Like that is when he was killed. Right. Right. Yeah, like I've always kind of liked him more as just like a timeless sort of creature. And like, even though I was like laughing through that whole sequence with like the subtitles and stuff and like the weird
Italian
like,
and
like I liked all that, but I was like, I don't know if I want the lore here, like I don't need a lot of Beetlejuice lore.
It was hilarious like how quickly that wife storyline was wrapped up. And like every time she was on the screen, I was excited. And like, but then this didn't really go anywhere, which I get. You know what? Again, I don't want to give this movie every pass in the book, but it's like, it's Beetlejuice, everybody. What do you want? But like specifically, what got me was in the beginning, they're like, oh, she's part of this death cult. And that's why she had me drink the poison. I was like, that's freaking cool. I can't wait to learn more about this death cult. It's never mentioned again. Like, I want to learn about the wife's death cult. This sounds cool.
Yeah, I like the general idea of including her because like Beetlejuice is always trying to like trap Lydia into marriage, right?
Right.
And it turns out that he is like then undone by his own like relationship that comes back and gets him.
Right. And specifically like the fun detail here, which I'd have to imagine they thought about and talked about, is in that first movie when Beetlejuice is looking for the ring and he's like digging through his pockets, remember? And then he pulls out a severed finger that has the ring on it. He's like, she meant nothing to me, babe. And then he pulls off the ring. It's like, okay, is that than the idea of that is planting the seed for this Dolores character in the new movie.
Maybe.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's a good tie-in.
Yeah.
Since I didn't watch any trailers, I was happy to see Monica Bellucci included in this movie, and agree that I loved seeing like absolutely every staple. Like that whole sequence was like
elaborate.
Felt like it was like a minute long. Just like we saw her completely put herself back together.
And it's like I think it's Burton's like fourth stapled together woman character after like Sally and Nightmare Before Christmas, and I think there's like a few other that I saw.
She was sewn together.
Dumbo's mom.
You're right. Apologies.
But yeah, I wonder why that is. I was torn as well whether I wanted to know Beetlejuice's origin, but now it's out there, and I found it to be quite pleasant.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
but yeah, after coming out of it, I was like, did she? I guess she had to have something happening that was a threat to Beetlejuice, but she didn't really feel like it all that much.
No.
And
I've heard some arguments that she's almost there to make you not realize that Jenna Ortega's boyfriend is the villain. Like she's there to be the villain. Like you don't even consider that. But I was kind of like, by the second scene with him, you're already kind of raising your eyebrow. And it's like, it's not a twist that's going to be effective on the rewatch. You know?
Yeah.
Well, what is? Yeah.
It worked for me. I was like,
here.
oh, this is a nice young lad. Something weird about his parents here, but I'm
not saying I didn't like that. I'm just saying like that argument of like Dolores was there to elevate that. It's like, well, I don't if Dolores was not there, I still would have enjoyed that arc with that character.
Right.
But
I do think it's like one of the best moments of the movie. Then you can feel the triumphant energy when like he stamps his passport. He's like, it was Beetlejuice who did that, sucker. See you in hell. It's like, oh, that's very satisfying to have that so fast and quick.
Well, that's his one F-bomb, isn't it? Right?
I forget. Probably.
Well, I believe the stamp was S out of luck, right? That was my favorite gag in the movie by far.
Yeah.
He looks down at the passport and that's what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks up and then it's Beetlejuice in the little outfit, you know, like I love Beetlejuice's commitment to various outfits. Just whatever's appropriate for the gag or the time.
He's got to lean
and
into
more
it.
contractual shenanigans. I love it.
Love it. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, more themes of the summer, not to spoil Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, but that movie also has like a character falling in love with a ghost in a way where it's like, oh, this feels, again, very similar. So like when they revealed that they were floating in the bedroom, it was like, oh, wow. Okay, they're doing this as well. Sure. But I thought that was a fun angle. Yeah, I think the parents being tortured or just taking care of this kid who murdered them for all time. Like that's a cool idea. But like
by the way, I just prepare to bleep Ben, but it is like a great line is when he does the stamp. He says, as Dostoevsky would say, later fucker. Which is like just a great. I love that was such a good. And then it says something different on the stamp, which somehow makes it better.
Yeah, perfect. It's interesting that I love the angle of like Beetlejuice running the business now with Bob and all the other shrunken-headed people from Beetlejuice 1. But then it's interesting that like he's not, I mean, it's a very kind of Faustian bargain is the classic Beetlejuice thing, right? And everyone's so worried about getting in bed with Beetlejuice this time around. But like, I don't feel there was really a threat. It wasn't much of a deal with the devil. It's basically just like, Beetlejuice, can you help us out? Sure thing. And then he helps everybody out. And it's like, okay, bye. Whereas in the first movie, it's like, oh my God, this guy's such a creep. How do we deal with it? And like, he's much less of a predator this time around in multiple different ways.
Winona Ryder has been doing interviews, and my wife and I had this discussion too. I'm curious what you guys think. But by the end of the movie, I was kind of like, Lydia and Beetlejuice being together doesn't feel like the end of the world. Like that actually is not bad because like she was like, I need help saving my daughter. And he was like, yeah, I'm there. Let's do it. Let's save your daughter. Like he was very helpful. He didn't hurt or kill anyone who didn't deserve to be hurt or killed. And Winona Ryder has even said in an interview, she's like, I kind of want to see Lydia and Beetlejuice get together. I want to see that be the end game.
Now keep in mind, Kyle, he did kill dozens and dozens of people with their phones at the end of the movie. You think using your phone at a wedding? Did he kill them
though?
They
were influencers, so.
Oh, that's true. Over 5 million followers, so they had to go. Yeah,
they deserved it.
But yeah, it's funny how it just kind of works out. Where in the first movie, you know, the creepiness of Beetlejuice, maybe he's not aged super great, and him trying to marry this young girl and all that stuff, but he's a creep, you know? But then it's funny, it's like, oh no, it turns out after time, it's fine. Now that he's lusting after Lydia, it's all good because she's an older lady. This is great. We support you,
wore her
Beetlejuice.
down after 3 decades.
Right.
It was a fun reference too to see her old her red wedding dress return, right?
Yeah, that was fun. The wildest thing I think in this movie, and the fact that they do it a couple times, the frickin' baby stuff. Like when they first see Beetlejuice in the like psychiatrist's office and her stomach starts filling up and then exploding. It was like, oh my God, you guys. Maybe I'm just sensitive to it with a baby, but like that is such a weird move. Then have the baby immediately just start gnawing on her legs. It's like, this is insane. But that's what I wanted.
It's the craziest birth trauma story I've seen since House of the Dragon.
That's exactly right. Then the fact that they come back to it again at the end of the movie, it's like, okay, they got to get, Grogu was big, so we need baby Beetlejuice out there just in case Michael Keaton passes on and we need to make 14 more of these things.
It's funny, the movie really freaked out my 12-year-old daughter more than I expected. She was really freaked out by it. And at the end we were having a discussion about it, and I was like, was it like the baby Beetlejuice or like the spill your guts or some of the like inexplicable violence? And she was like, no, it's just the concept of death and the afterlife. Just general idea was what freaked her out. But like baby Beetlejuice and stuff, she was like fine with it.
I love him. As long as he's not in my afterlife, it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I didn't really feel great about that whole like epilogue sequence.
Yeah.
Which it was totally a dream. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
But, like,
it was like two layers of dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, where or they're just like, all right, we're finally going on those seeing the world like we had always talked about.
I think that
and
happened.
Meets a guy and then like they get married in a week. I don't know the timeline.
Yeah.
You're like how much of this happy ending was actually true?
Right. At the same time, like I was thinking about that too. Like that was a weird note, but it's like then again, the movie starts on a surreal note with Lydia of like zooming into the dollhouse and she's like in the window, you know? So it's like kind of a nice framing of kind of a surreal Lydia, what's real, what's not type of thing. Which that's an angle. I'm happy with that.
Like all Tim Burton movies, I want to say like the environments are fantastic.
Yes. The fact
I love going back to the house is great. The small town is really cool and really well realized. All that stuff just, I don't know. I think that helps so much with all these things. Plus, beautiful fall weather in that town. Am I right? It got me psyched for the fall season here.
Yep, I'm with you. It's going to be sweet. Yeah, it is funny. Like you talk about, the art direction for that first movie, Brian. And normally I think there's something kind of sad about like the old director doing something, trying to recreate their style from decades and decades before. And for this one, I don't know. It just didn't hit me that way. It just felt like, hell yeah, Tim Burton, show me some freaky hallways. And I kept just thinking about my feeling watching Corpse Bride, which was, hell no, Tim Burton, this is you trying to rekindle your youth, and it just is nails on a chalkboard for me, But I mean, is this the best Tim Burton movie since Big Fish?
Oh,
Dumbo's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I'll defend Dumbo.
Who went to see Mrs. Peregrine in theaters.
Oof, Kyle. Okay. I mean, I haven't seen them all, but I think
same.
I think we're going back 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, he did really well with Wednesday though. That wasn't a movie.
Yep.
That was kind of a resurgence.
Yep, that's true.
Did you guys watch Wednesday? Like, I like Wednesday. I think that's a fun show, but it's not. If you, I wouldn't have even guessed it was like directed by Tim Burton. I would have guessed it was someone heavily influenced by Tim Burton, and like it just wasn't. It was fine. It was like my thought on Wednesday. But yeah, in terms of movies, like, yeah, I was thinking of like what are my favorite Burton movies, and I think like Edward Scissorhands is probably still my number one.
Yeah.
But like this would be like top 5, frankly. I think I'd have to sort of think through it, but I really enjoyed it.
Sweeney Todd is solid. Twitch is saying like, it's better than you think it's going to be. I thought it was interesting that apparently Tim Burton, he didn't rewatch the original Beetlejuice apparently before making this movie. He said in interviews, it's like, I wonder if that kind of lends to some fresh feelings, not just trying to rekindle everything from the past. Of course, they have plenty of homages and the Deo stuff at the funeral and stuff like that. And even like having the musical number at the end with them singing. It's like, well, technically the Maitlands made them sing in the first movie. It's not really a Beetlejuice maneuver, but it was so fun just to have that. And yeah, Kyle, I'm with you. We're like, the second it was MacArthur Park, I was like, what an odd choice. I'm like, you know what? Yeah. That is the right choice. Like a song that used to be popular that people kind of know. And now let's just bring it out and really lean into every line and how it connects to this scenario.
They played like a few seconds of it right at the title or very early in the title sequence.
Oh, really?
And I was like, is that MacArthur Park for some reason?
Oh, weird.
Why are they doing that? So when it came back, I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben, I assume you love it because of the Weird Al parody.
It is sad. Yeah. Where I was thinking about it, like, what percentage of people watching this movie know Jurassic Park, the Weird Al parody, more than MacArthur Park? Probably a majority, and especially people who love Beetlejuice. They are the exact people who watch the music video a lot for Weird Al's Jurassic Park. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I remember because that was one of my first CDs, and like I remember listening and liking that song in particular. And I remember my mother even telling me, like, I was like, "What is this song? I know it's a parody," and she was like. And I remember her telling me, like, oh, the original song is also very strange. It's like about cake melting in the rain, and like. I listened to it when I was young and I was like, God, this is weird. But now, like, as I'm older, like, and I listen to it, especially now after like watching Beetlejuice, I'm like, it's actually kind of beautiful and poetic and creates this like interesting visual of like sweet cream melting in the rain as like a metaphor for a breakup. And it's like, you know, this song is actually pretty freaking great. And like, and you guys know who sings it, right? You know the weird trivia fact about that? The version that they have in the movie is Richard Harris, who played Dumbledore in the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
Oh, what?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just bizarre for so many reasons. And I think I said it already, but like that sequence was my favorite in the movie of just like an extended MacArthur Park music video.
Yeah.
Like with Beetlejuice aesthetics. And it was the happiest I was watching the movie. I was just like, this is so bizarre in such a strange way. I love it so much.
Yeah, specifically what really got me then is when it shifts to kind of like the faster part of the song, and that's when Willem Dafoe comes out and is like hiding behind the gravestones, about to invade the church, and it's like, this is it. And especially just seeing like, you know, Willem Dafoe and the crew like interacting with the priest at this church, like this is some good, fun, silly stuff. I'm so on board for that. And like, I think when it comes to like energy in the movie, Willem Dafoe and Catherine O'Hara are probably the standouts for me. It's like, yes, like they are having fun. Like it's just such an absurd character to have. Okay, a stunt or an actor who wanted to do his own stunts and now his brain is half peeled away, and like
he also never drank the coffee that kept getting. Or did he ever? Because like it just like there was a shot of his trash can just like full of like cups, and like he just always. It was just like one of those. It's like a gag that's like if you just repeat something like that, it's just eventually it's gonna grow on me and be like, yeah, of course the woman's just there ready to give him a coffee.
Yeah,
right away.
And I love it. Like he's got the cue cards behind him, and he has that line where he gets handed the coffee, and he goes, "Thank you, Janet. You keep me real."
So good.
That was another character where I was like, is this totally necessary to be in the movie?
Right.
But also, things don't have to be necessary in a fun movie, I feel like. You can just have Willem Dafoe being crazy because that's great.
Yes.
You know, Willem Dafoe already has such a unique and kind of weird face. It's like everyone's like, we got to take it up a notch every time. Like, it feels like a lot of his recent movies, he's just getting like Poor Things, where he's just getting like all these crazy prosthetics. It's like, we got to make him even crazier looking. I just love that push.
Yeah.
And he's like squad of police goons was pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was great. Yeah. I love that they go back to, of course, the afterlife has access to Titan, the moon of Saturn. And I love that they like called it out as Titan, or they called it out like, what? Oh, that's Saturn over here, so maybe we're on a moon. It's like, oh, the afterlife is so random. It's like, no, that was one of my favorite little details in that first movie. Like, oh, they go to Saturn and that's where the worms are? Sure. I don't know how you come up with this or why, but I love it as a random idea. You want some random tidbits that I also loved? I loved, Dolores, large theme of her. I don't know if it works too well, but the idea of those shots of her like floating through the hallway that they do a couple times as she's like looking around scanning. It's like that looks cool. Thank you for giving me a cool looking shot with her. I love that Lydia is the one to go home, home, home. Like I always love that in the first one. Gina Davis just yells that, and like that's how you get back to reality. It's like, oh, that's such a cool detail to bring back, as her yelling home, 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 almost in like a Wizard of Oz style way.
I like the sequence where I like Justin Theroux. I thought he was very funny in the movie as well. And I think my favorite bit was when he was telling Astrid that he wrote a poem.
Right.
For her grandfather. And she's like, let me hear it. He's like, well, it's I didn't write it down.
It was very beautiful, though.
Yeah. What is he in? What
I
do
liked
people
is
know
that
about him?
even if they weren't, I'm not sure. I didn't look up the trivia, but if the worms and some of the other effects were indeed claymation, or if they were that like we're using CG, but it's in the claymation kind of stop motion style. But
Yeah.
I like that they retain that feel.
I'm not sure either. I would assume that it was actual claymation, but yeah, I'm not sure. It'd be fun to see a full making of this thing at some point. But
Ben, were you
fun to
asking
see,
about
like-
Justin Theroux?
yeah, who is that guy?
I mostly know him from Star Wars Episode 8 as the gambler guy they're looking for in Canto Bight.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
He's like a longtime Ben Stiller collaborator. He's a writer, of course. I know him as the DJ from Zoolander, obviously.
I haven't seen
but
this
then he
film.
was he
Married
also
to
starred,
Jennifer Aniston? Is that
Yeah,
right?
he was married to Jennifer Aniston for a while, and but he's mostly a writer. And he what was the other thing? I haven't watched it, but HBO's The Leftovers, which is supposed to be a fantastic show.
Yeah.
He stars in that. Like, he's like the main character.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
funny because he really has a comedy background, but then his sort of breakout role was this very serious drama on HBO.
Huh.
But yeah, he pops up in a lot of little things all over the place, and he's usually very funny.
Yeah, I'll be damned.
Yeah. Apparently, he was also in Mulholland Drive.
Oh,
So he's
I
got
saw that
some
one.
Lynch action.
I think when I talk about like how I can see how this movie kind of sucks at times, specifically, it's like there's certain lines. Like I remember when the first trailer was out, and the big line when Beetlejuice comes out for the first time is he goes, "The juice is loose." I was like, the juice is loose. That's okay. That's a fine line. And there were so many lines in this where it's like, was there no just punch-up session? Like no one can come up with better than this. Like when the wife comes to the church and like kicks the doors open to the church, it's like zoom into a close-up of her, and she just goes, "I'm back." It's like, this is the best you got. Or like, when Beetlejuice quote unquote dies, right? And he's all flat and stuff at the end, and then he just goes, "Should have got married in Vegas." Should have got married. It's such a zero of a line. Like, can we not have
Feels
a better?
right for Beetlejuice, though. I don't know. He's not that clever.
Sure.
I agree with you in the trailer. The juice is loose, like felt lame, but I feel like in the context of the movie, I actually liked it.
Okay.
Because it was kind of like it was just like his big entrance, and then it was this sort of like, I don't know, it kind of worked for me where he was just had this one weird line like that where Winona Ryder's reaction is almost like, what are you talking about? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, I did like when he
So
was
it worked for
playing.
me.
I like when he was playing the guitar right here, waiting for you. It's like,
That was
all the musical stuff worked out pretty well.
All the lip syncing, really great.
Yeah,
he really had
even
quite a
the
bit of
Italian. Yeah,
Yeah, all
And
these
it-
lame lines I think are things that you're fine with if you saw it when you're a kid. Like, it's showtime. That's from the original, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's timeless and great.
exactly.
Perfect.
I guess.
Yeah.
Is that a reference to All That Jazz? I think. I'd have to. Well, I know it's a phrase outside of that, but like film wise, right? Like it's showtime. After popping the pills, that movie's quite good if you've never seen it. Have you guys ever seen Larry David's movie that was basically like a new episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm called Clear History?
Yeah, Keaton's in that. Is that what
Keaton
you're
just plays Beetlejuice in that. If you want more,
Yeah, he
it's the third Beetlejuice movie. Like look up clips of Michael Keaton in Clear History because it is uncanny. He's just doing Beetlejuice in that Larry David movie. It's really weird to watch.
Did you guys think it was strange that the ending was almost the same as far as like, oh yeah, and then we just kind of summon the worms and then they eat whatever the problem is, and then it's all wrapped up, right?
Yeah, it was strangely abrupt. Yeah, but it's like, well, what do I want? Like a climactic battle? Like, sure, is kind of the attitude, I guess.
Also, have you guys seen the new Batman Caped Crusader at all?
Yeah, great show.
This is the Amazon animated show.
Yeah.
Yep.
I recommend checking it out if you like the old animated series.
Yeah.
I
takes a
started
little-
it. Yeah.
It takes a little getting used to. And Ross, I'm not sure if you're at this part, but there is a villain that is somewhat similar to Monica Bellucci towards the later part.
Oh, yeah, I just saw that one. Yeah,
interesting.
That's funny.
Huh.
Yes. I thought you were going to say Michael Keaton actually did the voice for Batman. And
There we go.
I wouldn't have been opposed to that, but is it Hamish Linkletter? Is that his name?
yeah,
does a good job.
he does a good job.
I won't derail this any further, but yeah, it was it was a very similar villain. Like the Batman came out just slightly before Beetlejuice, and I didn't see the Batman until after, so it's kind of crazy to see.
Oh, funny. A lot of people online were angry that Bob died.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yep, I guess
You
I
gotta
gotta
crack a few eggs if you're making a legacy sequel.
I guess how it works.
The Han Solo of this movie.
At least his lips were freed at the last second, so he got one last moment to say, "Oh."
Yeah, I thought they're going to be building up to him speaking eloquently or some silly kind of Silent Bob situation where he just like finally unloads all of his thoughts or something like that. But yeah,
Complains about his boss.
Right.
That's final words.
I did love that idea of like when the door opened to that little thing and then all those guys just immediately run out like, oh my God, we can just go to
that was good.
Earth again. This is wonderful. Yeah, I was trying to think of like what I compared this movie to when I was leaving it. Because yeah, in the Lego sequel world, it's like this. I had a good time. I liked this more than I thought. It's just kind of like a positive, like yeah, kind of vibe. And like, I think I liked it more than Dial of Destiny. But I think that's maybe the closest to me of leaving that movie and be like, you know what? Yeah, all right, Dial of Destiny. I liked how you ended. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I liked it more than Dial of Destiny. I didn't see Dial of Destiny in the theater though, which was my mistake.
Yeah, it's hard to compare the movies in some way because they're so different. But I appreciate a movie that ends strong, and that's what this movie did.
Yeah,
and left me with a great feeling leaving the theater.
Yeah. Beetlejuice, everybody. Final thoughts, Brian?
I feel like the way they titled this, Beetlejuice, like, and this combined with the success of the box office. You guys think the odds are pretty good for Beetlejuice? Since the 3 is such a strong factor in this plot, in this movie.
I hope if they make it, they just call it Beetlejuice 3.
Just to annoy everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, because like Burton said he was going to retire after Peregrine, I think, and then he did Wednesday, and like the feedback on that was so positive that supposedly that's what kind of said like, oh, maybe I do want to make more movies, and then this was even more positive, I feel like, than that. And I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, frankly, like, especially if the cast is like really energized and wants to do it. Like, I guess Winona Ryder has been like campaigning to do more Beetlejuice like for years. Like, even when she was like, supposedly, I think this was IMDb trivia, so grain of salt and all that, but supposedly when she started Stranger Things, like, she talked to the Duffer Brothers and were like, I'm happy to do this, but like if a Beetlejuice sequel comes along, like you guys need to let me pause the show to go do that.
That's funny.
And that was like 6 years ago or something like that. So like if everyone is like excited to do it, I would totally be open for a sequel. But I also like I would be fine if we never see another Burton Beetlejuice again. I'd die happy. I'd be fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of those instances of like when is Tim Burton like all like full steam ahead for a sequel, like Batman Returns. But
even that took convincing. Like he had like because I think his deal was like, you can't give me notes. Like, I'm not going to go through this again if you guys are going to sort of give me all kinds of crazy notes, which is why Batman Returns is so weird.
Yeah. I'm going to bum kids out across America with my Batman sequel. By God. Yeah. So I don't know how persuaded he'll be. Like, he just got on the Hollywood Walk of Fame or whatever. Like maybe he is just kind of in a phase of wanting to kind of go out with a positive vibe, but I don't know.
Would you only want to see it if he's the director?
Oh,
or are you okay with them bringing J.J. Abrams in?
I say get J.J. Colin Trevorrow, I think, could really do a great Beetlejuice 3. A lot of angles here. But hey,
the Jurassic Park creative team.
That's right. That's right.
I think he's in a relationship with Monica Bellucci now. And,
oh, really?
And she's dead, so she wouldn't be able to come back for the third one.
So what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, that's tough. I hope the third one's all about that room of the lost souls. Remember that where they open the door in the first one? It's like the super scary ghosts. Like, this is what happens if you get exorcised from a house. Like, let's try and redeem those freaks. Well, hey, that's Beetlejuice, everybody. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, all this fun stuff. Ross, it'd be a shame, as Ross, the Star Wars guy fun, not to get your your thoughts on the loss of James Earl Jones.
Hey, he was an all-time great, not just in Star Wars, but in literally everything he ever did.
Yeah.
Just a great guy, great run, 93. He was doing that Darth Vader voice into his 80s and was still knocking it out of the park.
Was Rogue One the last time he recorded VO?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
Because I think that was after Rebels, which he definitely did as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he wasn't an Obi-Wan?
He's credited, but I don't think he did it. I think it was deep faked or some way. I remember thinking that it was
With his
like
blessing,
artificially,
probably. Okay.
yeah, like under agreement with him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they signed a very prominent deal with him about we can use your voice forever and use AI and deepfake to replicate it. Or also, they did a lot of blending with Hayden Christensen's voice to kind of use the two. But
Young it up.
yeah, Disney's all wrapped up with the contract on his voice forever.
There is
so-
just a callback to the not great movie Coming to America, but his big scene in that movie is he has like his funeral where he's still alive and he's just like sitting in his coffin watching everybody dance in front of him and he's like, ooh, yeah, I love this. It's weird footage to have out there now that he's gone of just him enjoying his own funeral, but that's all we could hope for. Hey, I think that's it. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? Jurassic World Rebirth, coming in the future. We'll be celebrating that in a big way.
I'm so excited for it.
Really?
Yes,
You are?
It sounds like it's gonna
Are
be
you
real
sure?
dumb, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it's coming in hot.
Yeah, I haven't enjoyed a Jurassic Park movie since the first one, but I'm always there for it just to see what weird stuff they're going to do this time around.
Yep, let's see what happens. All right, well, Ross, Brian, Kyle, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching or listening. Again, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you next time for something else that will spoil the hell out of. Goodbye, everybody.
Right.
Home, home, home.
Did you know that you can double the amount of MinnMax podcasts you listen to every single week right in your favorite podcast app? All you have to do is go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, jump in at that $5 tier, and then you're good to go. You have the podcast version of The Deepest Dive, Max Spoilers, MinnMax Interviews, weekly access to Bonus Pod, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast. It's very good. And early and ad-free versions of the MinnMax Show podcast every single week. There's a ton of content in there, and it's a way to directly support what we do here at MinnMax.